Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I trust everyone is safe and well. Welcome to the new combined weekly open classroom format. It feels like such a long time since we previously met, even though it was last Friday. The main reason for the decision to combine our four weekly classes into one compact class was twofold. The first being that time nowadays is a very valuable commodity, and the second being that across all industries, the webinar communication channel has become almost oversubscribed. Hence, the new compact format, which will still offer the exact same contents, just packaged slightly differently. We're going to be joined today by Cameron Boyle, Andrew Cole, and Christopher Smith, all the regulars, starting with Cameron's weekly roads class. Please remember that all our past webinars, 47 of them now, can be found on our website on the FAQ page, which is under the services pull-down menu. As always, please feel free to use the text chat service on your GoToWebinar app to ask us any questions you may have during the various presentations. So, good afternoon, Cameron. Please take it away.
Good afternoon, Charles. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the road session of today's webinar. We're going to be looking at two functions. We're going to be looking at the road segments. This function can be used to split your road at certain channages. Then we'll return back to this project. This is the speed profile functionality found under alignment speed profile, where you would specify a speed of a truck. If the truck goes slower than that speed, then Civil Designer would suggest a climbing lane. More about this a bit later. Let's exit this project and move on to the segment project. Just for interest's sake, this road is over 40 kilometers long. At the bottom here, I've got over 40 layouts. And if we look at my surveyed points, I've got approximately 2.6 million surveyed points. The objective here is to split the road into different segments. With the road this long, you probably won't want to design it all at one speed. So depending on where you are on the road, where you got junctions, you might want to design for a certain speed. If you're leaving a residential area and you got rural surroundings, you may want to increase the design speed. Now I'll go through the procedure on how you can go and change the design speed for different segments of your road. Starting over here, we're going to go and split the road at chainage 37,800, and as we enter in a residential surrounding, we're going to decrease the design speed. First of all, I'm going to go to my design criteria. So I go to alignment, select design criteria. Switch it on and go and specify design speed. In this case, the horizontal alignment, the minimum radius is 110. If you do use the design criteria and you specify a minimum radius of less than 110, Civil Designer would then warn you that it's not according to spec. You are able to go and change these values and then go and save it and use it at a later stage by clicking on the load button. This would apply to your horizontal, your vertical alignment, as well as your super elevation with some additional settings over here. Using the default values for design speed of 60 kilometers per hour, I can then go and click on Save As and go and specify a certain name for it. And then I'll use that later in the design process. If I go and select this section of road, I'm making it the active road. And due to that, if I go to File, select Road File, the current road selected is highlighted. I need to go and split it at chainage 37,800. So it falls within that stretch of road. Selecting this icon on the left-hand side, reading my prompt to enter a split chainage or graphically indicate the split position. I can manually go and type in the chainage value over there. Alternatively, I can take my cursor to the position of the split and left click. You can see the split change has been updated. If I'm not happy with that, again, I could go and round it off to my own value. Click on the green tick. There's a prompt, are you sure you want to split the road? And I'm going to say yes. There you can see the additional segment. I'm able to go to my control panel and go and make changes where necessary. In this example, I'm just going to change my design criteria file. Civil Designer will then re-extract the design, but this time using the new segmented chainage. The segment has been inserted. You can see on the top here we've got segment 6. If I were to go to Section, Graphical Edit, and go and select a chainage after 37,800, you'll see that we've retained the chainage value. So the road doesn't start again at chainage 0. Selecting the road, I'm going to right click and go to Road Operations, Vertical Alignment. Looking at the vertical alignment, you can see it can still be designed as a 40-kilometer road. If I go to my display settings to go and switch off some information we don't require, and then zoom in to our segment. You can see it's from segment 5 to segment 6. In earlier versions of Civil Designer, when you had to design intersections, in a case like this, you would have made the shorter stretch of road two separate designs. Now with the segment functionality, you no longer have to do that. So I'm going to go and split this shorter road into segments and then ask Civil Designer to automatically insert the junctions for me. Before doing so, I'm going to go to my option settings and then point out I'm switching on automatically add junctions. Specify tolerance of, in this case, 7 meters, and here I'm specifying to show the settings. Going back to the segment functionality, we go to File, select Road File, select Intersection 1, which is the short road, and then click on the segment icon. Again, we can either specify the chainage manually, or we can go to the diagram and left click. Once I've left click, the split chainage has been updated. Click on the green tick. Click on yes for confirmation. There you can see the first and the second segment. If need be, you can go to the control panel and go and make changes. We don't in this case need to specify different design criteria. Going through the automatic junction design process, specifying your bow mouth radius. And looking at the diagram, Civil Designer is indicating that we're working on this side of our road. Click on yes. Then looking at the other side, also specifying your bow mouth radius. Moving on to the next functionality and looking at the speed profile. Please take note that I've got the 40-kilometer road project still open while I'm busy working with this project. I go to Alignment, select Speed Profile. And then move this to the left-hand side. And if you're not quite sure what the Speed Profile function does, I'm going to press F1, and that would then automatically open up our hub file. You could read up more about the function. And at the bottom, I'm going to select Speed Profile. This function takes a design vehicle in the vertical alignment as input and generates a speed profile using the algorithm described below. the algorithm and the SAE track performance equations. It also suggests climbing lanes according to a user-defined allowable speed reduction. Looking at the settings, we'd only specify a start and an end chainage, initial speed of the truck, and then the allowable speed reduction. And this is all in kilometers per hour. In other words, if your truck goes slower than 40 kilometers per hour, we want to go and put in the climbing lanes. The design vehicle operating speed, this is the maximum speed that you want the truck to travel at. The frontal area you specify, so that could be taken into effect to calculate your wind resistance. On the right-hand side, you specify your power in kilowatts and your weight. So using the power to rate ratio, using the algorithm description according to the SAE truck performance equation, we are able to then go and calculate the speed at which the truck would travel, depending on the vertical alignment grade of your road. On the right-hand side over here, we're looking at the left-hand side. This lane setting is irrelevant when you're doing single carriageway roads, but you would go and change that if you're doing the dual carriageway. We'd only do the left-hand side first. Closing the hub file and then clicking on next. On the left-hand side, we've got a speed profile array. We've got our chainage values. We've got the speed in kilometers per hour, and then we've got the grade on the right-hand side of that. Looking at approximately 2,185, and then you take us to that chainage. There you can see the speed for the first time drops below 40 kilometers per hour. On the right hand side here, we've got the graph indicating your speed. So where the speed drops below the 40 kilometers per hour, that is where the climbing lanes are suggested. So looking at the bottom here, we've got the exact chainage values. You have the option to turn the suggestion on and off, as well as define your own chainage value. On there, round my values off. We give you the option to go and print this result out. I get confirmation. Do you want to apply the selected climbing lanes to your edge levels? Clicking on yes. This add climbing lanes dialog comes up. You need to go and specify what additional lane width you would like. The start and the end chainage was discussed in the previous dialog, and then these 20 meters would be a transition from the normal width to the additional. At the bottom, you have the option of changing your templates. And then at the bottom, we've got your lane settings. We'd only apply this to the left lane. Click on OK. And there you can see on your width page, if you can't quite see your width page, you are able to go and make this bigger and smaller. You are also able to go to your display settings and make changes to your colors. So looking at the vertical alignment, here we've got an incline, and this is where the truck would start slowing down, and that is why we've gone and introduced these additional lane widths. Originally, we had 3.4 meter width, and then we added the 3.1 to give us 6.5. If you go to the spreadsheet option, select widths at the bottom, you can see now how that's been updated. There's chainage 2170, and then we took the 20 meter transition to reach 2190, and there we've got the full width. Closing that and saving the information. Regenerating our edge levels with the new widths. With the new information extracted, you can see over here how the road has been made wider on the left-hand side, traveling in this direction. Doing the same for the right-hand side, we go back to alignment, speed profile. This time go and select the right-hand side. As mentioned before, this only applies if you've got a dual carriageway road. Looking at my results, at the beginning of our road, we've got a bus lay-by, which I preferably want to keep so I can go and make changes to the information. Click on Finish. And yes, we're going to use the same settings as before. Just don't forget that we want to apply this to the right-hand side lane. This really gives us a nice graphical indication of why we want to apply the additional lane width. If you travel from right to left, this is an incline, so you can see at the bottom here we've put in these additional widths. Same thing in the case over here. There's our incline and there's our additional width. And this is where we went and put in the bus lay-by. I have exaggerated the scale and that's why it looks quite big. Going back to the spreadsheet, selecting widths. There's the additional widths on the right-hand side. In this case, I'm going to go and close that, save it, and regenerate the edge levels. Once it's done, I'm just going to change my zoom views. It was still on the left-hand side. And then looking on the right-hand side here, you can see the climbing lane starts at this section and becomes wider over a 20-meter length. And at this position over here, you can see it goes back into the original width. Selecting to render the view. And then using my defined zoom views, I'm hoping this view would make more sense now. So we've got the additional lane signboard here. The truck will hopefully go into the slower lane and the faster car would then overtake the truck. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, cheers for now. Back to you, Charles.
Thank you, Cameron. That was great. We're now going to be handing over to Andrew Cole for his survey and terrain session. Andrew, please take it away.
Hi there. In today's survey and terrain segment of the webinar, I'm going to be looking at Civil Designer's Draft Expert functionality. The Draft Expert automates the creation of topographic drawings and DTMs by the use of point name rules. The Draft Expert functions can assist you with the bulk of your CAD line work and can be used in a couple of ways inside Civil Designer. Firstly, if you look at the survey module under tools, you've got the Draft Expert. So the first method is when you're importing a coordinate file, it'll actually create the lines and insert symbols, draw hatching based on those point names from the survey file. And then secondly, you've also got a point-to-point method. The point-to-point method would probably be needed if your survey wasn't initially done in the right format. So the import coordinate method requires that your coordinate file be in a certain sequence and in a certain format. So with a point-to-point method, you still have to then define the routes and click on your points, but basically everything else is automated. And then the third method would be under your reductions pull-down menu. Under the Tacky reduction, you'll see we have got the Draft Expert available over here as well. So you'd be able to do the line work or get the program to do the line work for you while reducing your tacky survey. So let's have a look at how the Draft Expert works. So this Draft Expert is going to take survey point data like we've got on our screen, and then when you run the function, it's going to draw in the CAD lines. It's going to draw your hatching, insert your symbols, your text and annotation, and it's going to do this according to those point name rules. So where do you set those rules? It's under Tools, the Draft Expert, and the Settings. So the Draft Expert settings. And as a default, we've got some of these rules built in, but you can obviously add your own point name rules, and you can then save these settings and reuse them for future projects as well. So let's just have a look at these settings. So for every point name in that server that you're going to be working with, you've got a couple of options on what action the draft expert has to take. So you can insert a DTM point for any point name. You can add feature lines between points. And then you can define a surface that you want the points and feature lines to be added to. You've got quite a few options here on what sort of CAD item you'd like to generate. I click on the drop down, there's a node drawing any CAD option, and then you've got polylines, either a 3D polyline with the height assigned to every vertex, a 2D polyline, spline, chained lines, just single line text, multi-line text, a radius circle, and then a block insert. Any block or symbol that you would like to use in the draft expert function needs to be loaded into the project using the block manager before running the draft expert function. In the CAD properties, you'll specify what CAD layer you want this generated CAD entity to be positioned on, either existing layer, or you can just type in the layer and the layer will be added to the layer settings. You can then also specify a pen color and your line style settings for the lines that get generated. The sequence setting is for the coordinate file import method, where you possibly have picked up points that run parallel to each other, like for example the two edges of a road. You have a few options there. You've got sequential, so as the survey has been done, everything's just been done in a linear fashion. The side-to-side method would be your first surveyed point that side of the road, then one on this side, 3, 4. So it's going 2 on this side going across, then 2 on that side coming across, 2 on this side going across as well. So that's the side-to-side method, and an alternative to that would be the zigzag method, where you just go straight across the road diagonally, and then it comes straight across again for the subsequent points. Okay, so that just is the way the program then reads in how the readings were done, and then it generates the lines based on the method used. Number of parallel lines would be with that measurement mode. You could, for example, have two edges of the road. You could have the left edge, center line, and the right edge. So that would be 3 parallel lines, for example. The labeling, in this case, for example, edge of road, the two options are true or false. The true option would be that you do want to have CAD added, a label added, and you can see the edge was the value there, the text item that we've added. Just which label text style you want to use, and then the label height. The hatching, that would come down. Let's see if we're looking at this building BLD item. We're also adding a polyline, a 2D polyline. And in this case, the measurement or the sequence option here was closed. So that means the polyline gets drawn into a closed shape. And then the program can then also be told to hatch this closed CAD entity, which would be items like this. Structure just inside the fence line over here. As I've mentioned, you can save these settings and reuse this draft expert setting again for future projects. Just if you are setting up your own settings for particular names, you'll see in this bar over here, if you right click, you've got an option to add additional point names that you can then assign those actions to. If I click on the add, you'll see you would just type in the name and then you can copy from some settings, existing settings from an existing name. So those are the draft expert settings. So let's go look at the draft expert in action. So how does Civil Designer know where to start these lines and where to end them if you've got all these points that you've imported from the file? So you can see in this example all the road edges, the same with the pathway. There's a different start and end point. So if I open up the actual survey file in Excel, you can see the points, and wherever you want to end a line, you can add a suffix, exclamation mark suffix. And when you want to start a new line, you can use a prefix, exclamation mark prefix. You can always set those in the option settings, your own symbol, preferred symbol that you'd like to use. We've also got some levels for the floor and the manholes as well. Okay, so those can be used interchangeably, the prefix and the suffix, to start or end a line. Okay, and then let's move on to the actual project to import that coordinate file and have the draft expert do the CAD work for us. We're going to be needing a tree symbol, so before we start running the draft expert, I'm just going to go to the CAD module, to the block manager, and I'm going to load that tree symbol or block. So these are just the knowledge base default survey symbols. I'm just loading that tree number 2 symbol that was defined in those settings. You can always load your own blocks or symbols. There you can see it in the block manager, that tree symbol. Then just go back to my server application, and then we can run that tools draft expert, the coordinate file function. So this is the file that we're using that's going to do the AutoCAD for us. So just the name, the Y, X. In this case, there are some elevations for the floor level and the manholes, so we're going to bring that in as well, the Z value. Okay, the default names are shown, but I'm going to have to load the settings because they're not currently populated, all those CAD and action settings. So I've pre-done those. Those have been prepared before the time, the settings, and saved to a file. So you can see if I just click on the different names, you can see the different actions that are going to be done. Inserting DTM points, adding feature lines, the path being done with that zigzag sequence mode. And in this case, there are 2 parallel lines. For the text, maybe I can just mention the values there. We've got some built-in values, so you can type in your default text that you'd like to be added, but you have got some right-click options inside that format string details dialog. So if you right-click, you can extract the point name, the X, Y, Z coordinates, and then if you want to create additional lines, you just use the new line option. In this case, we're going to have 2 lines of text. And there's our survey tree symbol that we're going to be using. For the WC points or the water closet, we've specified the hatching to be done as well. So that's set to true. Okay, and I've just selected to run all those points, so actions for all those points, and you can see all the CAD work has been done pretty neatly. Okay, so those sequences based on those exclamation mark positions where the lines stop and start. You can also see the annotation that you've asked to be added along the lines. And your tree symbol that's come through, those levels, the water closets, and then the path based on that zigzag method. So it's straight across and then diagonally across all the way along that path as the readings were inserted into the survey file. I can maybe just switch the triangulation lines on, and then triangles on first, and then we can switch the CAD layers off. so only the current layer visible, so that you can see the break lines and DTM points that were added. Just going to switch the CAD layers back on, and then I'm going to move on to the tacky reduction. So it's the reductions tacky function, and we loading a field book, and it's just a standard tacky reduction that we're going to be doing, but we're going to incorporate the draft expert. So it's under reduce draft expert. We just run the normal tacky reduction. It's worked out the coordinates, but it's adding in that draft functionality, draft expert functionality. It doesn't have the correct action file, so I've just loaded that additional file to create the polylines, etc. And then the trig points are being put onto a specific surface. So it's just the normal tacky reduction with the draft expert drafting added to it. I'll just switch off the names and heights, and you can see the CAD lines and text and annotation that has been added. So finally today I just want to run through the point-to-point method, the tools draft expert point-to-point method. So there is a settings button for those draft expert settings up at the top in the prompt area, and I've preloaded the correct draft expert settings for this particular project. So it's just a matter of tracing along the paths where you want the lines to be drawn. In this case, edge of tar, right click finish at the end of every line. So this is slightly more manual, but it's reading in automatically the line types, the annotation, etc. Just doing the center lines for the roads. And right click finish at the end of every line. Doing the water closet with the automated hatching. Just doing the fence line as well. And then just the floor level, the tree symbols, and then this path that's been set up to be drawn with the spline. So basically just have to track along that path point on either side of that path. Okay, and then you've also got the name filter checkbox if you want to put the names off, but you can also use the ER normal name filter for that. And that's it for today. I hope this draft expert is something that you'll find very useful. Thank you for watching, and cheers for now.
Oops, wrong screen there. Thank you very much, Andrew. That was great. We're now going to hand over to Chris for his water module segment. Apologies that we're running a little late, folks. Chris, please take it away.
Thanks, Charles, and welcome everybody to this webinar, where today we'll be looking at two items in the water. We'll first be looking at dealing with water results, and secondly, we'll be dealing with the quantities. Let's go have a look at the results. If you do a time simulation, you're going to have different results over the 24-hour period. Let's go ahead and look at how to deal with these different results based on time. I'm going to open up a project. Let's go File, Open. And I'm going to open up. So here you can see we've got our nodes that are going to display the pressure, our velocities, and our flow rates will be in the pipes. You'll see that the results are not currently being shown. This is not due to analysis needing to be run, but for it to be displayed. If I go to water and I expand that and I go down to results, I can now choose which ones I'd like to do. There you can see you've got the single step analysis. If you click on that, you will have your average demands across your network. If you choose the time of day, you will see that you have different pressures and velocities and flow rates during the course of the day. You could also look at it in a graph. So if we click on the link and we go display pipe graph, you can see the flows during the course of the day, as well as the velocities, the head loss, and the gradient. One other way of displaying, for instance, the pressures, is if we go to our display settings, we go to the nodes, you can also show the maximum pressure in bar, and we can also show the min pressure in bar. So I'll just put there. We can now go and look at changing the times of day, and you'll notice that the max and the min remain the same because it's displaying the max over the 24-hour period and the min over the 24-hour period. Let's create a layout and look at the effects over time. So I'm just going to choose a smaller section. I'll quickly just define a pipe route from here to say here. I'll just call this demo. Great, so I'm going to just move this up over here, and I'm going to go to Tools, Vertical Alignment. You can see the demo path is already been shown. You can probably just change the screen size to suit us a bit better. And now you can see as I move my mouse along this route, the crosshair will move to show me whereabout this is. Importantly is to look at your time of day. You can see that you've got different times of day will show different results. Let's put on our hydraulic grade line as well. And here you can see the grade line is showing, and we can do start animation to check what is happening during the course of the 24-hour period which we ran the analysis for. We can then close that, and we can go and plot this route. So I'm going to go and say plot generate. I'm going to choose the water long section. I'm going to make sure that I use the dynamically updates when the model changes. I'm making sure that I'm using the demo route. I'm going to use the vertical scale of 200 to ensure that I fit the hydraulic grade line in. I'm not going to auto scale for this demo because really we just need one drawing just to show you how it updates. Here you can see I've got my vertical alignment as well as my hydraulic grade line along the top here. If we zoom in over here and we change the times of day, it will not update until you go to Force Dynamic Regenerate. There you'll see your items will update. I see I still got 3 minutes left, so I just want to cover some items that are fairly new to Civil Designer's water module. Let's go back to the drawing, and if we look at analysis, you will see that you've got your quantities. We'll just go through that quickly. You'll see that you have your materials, diameters, classes, and lengths, your excavation lengths, excavation volumes, and your bedding volumes. You'll also see that we have our bends and junctions. Here you can see that you've got your bends along the pipe, in the nodes, your junctions, the summary of your bends, and your other fittings, like end caps and crosses and T's. And lastly, we have the connection quantities. Here you can see you've got the number of saddles for the single connection and double connection, for the short and the long, the number of saddles and the pipes that it's connecting to, and the length of your 20, 25, and 40 mil pipe. One last thing before I hand over back to Charles, I would just like to quickly cover the exporting from Civil Designer and directly importing it into the BIM 360 cloud. This will only be for the people that use the BIM 360 cloud. Let's go and have a look at this. I'll just bring up the files here. You need to search for the BIM 360 desktop connector, and you need to access the site and install the BIM 360. Once it's installed, you will notice in your project files, you will have the BIM 360 folder. Similar to Dropbox, you could expand and you can drop your files into the project file, and it will show up into your projects. In CAD mode, you need to go to File, Import Export, Export to IFC. At this stage, I'm going to deselect the roads and I'll send out the terrain as well as the stormwater files. I'll send it out as the CAD mesh and I'll negate the coordinates. We don't need this at this stage, and we'll need to select the file location. So we can click on the BIM 360. Use the BIM naming convention, that is up to you. So we'll just call this the NGL and storm. And we can press OK. So that file has been placed into the BIM 360. As you can see, it's now showing on the side. But as in Dropbox, it will take some time to upload to the cloud. So it'll take a bit of time till it shows up on the side. So there you can see it is now reflecting on this side and it is still uploading. Great, so it's imported. We can now click on it. Let's just make this bigger. There you can see it is loaded in the terrain as well as all the sub-networks for the stormwater. Great, I hope that helps a lot with your importing directly from Civil Designer into BIM 360. That is all from this side. Back to you, Charles.
Thank you, Chris, Andrew, and Cameron. That was great. More importantly, thank you to all of you who attended today. Please remember, if you would like any further information with regards to Civil Designer, please use the email address listed on your screens right now. As I stated earlier, all our past webinars, 48 of them now, can be found on our website on the FAQ page, which is found under the Services pull-down menu. Hope you all enjoyed the new format. See you next week Thursday at the same time and same place using the same link. But in the interim, please do not hesitate to contact us at any stage should you require any additional information or assistance. Have a great afternoon, great weekend, and goodbye for now.